Wanna learn how to be the best at setup characters? Then you're in the right place. I'm a Forsaken nerd who hasn't touched grass since release, and I'm gonna show you everything. How to play setup characters, how to counter them, their placements, tricks, and way more. All in this one video, so you can get way better at playing as them and against them. First we'll go through basics and then climb our way up to more difficult stuff. So let's start from the easiest. So your spikes move with your camera. Slower you move your camera, smaller the spaces will be between them, but if you do it faster, the spaces will be bigger, which will most of the time allow survivors to escape. Knowing that fact, trapping survivors will be already much easier, but we can make this a lot better and a bit harder by adding setups. Setups are when you think 2 steps ahead. You know where survivors will go almost at the beginning of the match. I'll show you one best setup for each map, which will help you trap survivors. Trapping survivors without any setup can be easy as well, though it requires better spike placements. But if you are not aware of that, survivors can sometimes jump over them or go through them. You can counter most traps by going the opposite way of spikes, though sometimes it's not possible. It's much easier if you have Sheletsky or any other sentinel to help you by stunning them, and it's even better if you can communicate with them so you can scream for help. Do you think that's easy? Alright, well let's go to harder setups. These setups won't be as easy as previous ones, and I will explain some of them. Let's get started. On Brandon Works you do the setup like always, but do spikes here instead. For Planet Boss I like to call the setup I hate Planet Boss so much, and well it looks like that. This one is not even a setup, but I decided to include it anyway. Now let's get to the most difficult tech. But what can be so difficult? I'm introducing you to flick trapping. So what is it? While you are trapping someone with spikes, you can do a flick at the end and damage unsuspecting survivors. And it's kinda difficult, so let me show you how to do it. First thing you need to do is to look around for survivors before trapping someone. Then after you successfully trap someone, do a quick flick to the last position you saw the survivors at, or to the place where you think they moved to. You can use some skins for an advantage when it comes to placing digital footprint. For example, Gas Harpoon has a white digital footprint which will blend into bright floor, but other skins have it black. But one skin in particular will make digital footprint twice as hard to see, and that's Geometry John. Just look at this compared to default, but not only that, it seems smaller, which will make survivors step into it even though it's the same size. And well, that was all for John, but we have 2 more setup characters remaining. I'm gonna go with Taph first, because he has more going on in his kit. But actually, he has only a tripper and a subspace which are very simple. And well, that's very wrong. There is way more going for them than you might think. First thing being trap placements, and the most simple ones are tripwires on door frames and subspaces behind walls. If you do that, you haven't reached Taph's full potential. So where should you place them? And that's a question that you need to answer yourself. Experimenting is the best way of learning Taph, but there are a few placements that make subspaces or tripwires completely invisible. I'm gonna show you a few of them. So let's get to harder stuff, and that's using subspace in chase. Most people think it's impossible to use it in chase, but it is possible. First, you need to make sure you have distance, check. After that, you need to go behind a wall, check. And lastly, throw your subspace into a corner. Though, there's many different moments when you can also use it in chase, which are for example when you have the high ground, when a killer lost you, or when they miss an ability. And at that moment, subspace chaining really comes to play. It often snowballs for the rest of the game, giving you more and more subspace tripmines as long as the killer gets affected by it, leaving the killer with helpless and broken dreams of winning the game. Now, let's get to the hardest thing to do. It's Taph, so what can be so difficult? I'm introducing you to one-way tripwire. You probably never heard of them, but there's actually spots that tripwire can only be activated if the killer goes from one side. But you may ask, how is this useful if it only works from one side and not both? Well, it's way harder to destroy, and also once the killer sees that the tripwire doesn't work, they won't bother destroying it. Only one-way tripwire spot I found so far is here. In this spot it's also very hard to see this tripwire. Now to the last setup character, Builderman. Instead of dropping, he focuses on setting up safe zones for survivors. You should build sentry and dispenser close together to maximize safety. Well, that's known by a lot of people, but what about sentry placements? You are placing them wrong without realizing it. You should place sentries in spots where a killer has to spend more time to get to, which will make most of the killers not bother going for the sentry, which will give them ult of slowness, which will give you much more distance in the long run. But what if they decide to destroy it? You'll get much more distance than you would have otherwise. Take a look. You can place sentries in spots where killer will get a disadvantage by trying to destroy the sentry. An example of that is placing it in black water. But some high grounds count as well. And lastly, you probably think that Builderman doesn't have anything crazy for us, right? Well, he has something that's barely possible, but what? That's to use sentries with your teammates. It's impossible to do it in most public servers, but you can try doing it with friends or asking some random guest or Taph to work with your sentry. But what do I mean by that, you may ask? Well, if there's a sentry placed down, your teammate, guest or Taph can make the sentry even more painful to destroy. Taph can place subspace on top of the sentry so the killer has to wait for helpers to run out, and guest can camp on the sentry and try to get a block or a parry out of that. Be careful though, sometimes killers will try to bait it out. And remember to never block line of sight of the sentry. Anyway, subscribe for more guides like this. Also, check out this video, it's pretty good.